Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we recap an O's victory as the Orioles come back from that awful game Monday night and beat the Blue Jays 6-5 on Tuesday to even the four-game series at one game apiece. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from a big road win for the O's. Then we'll take a look back at the Orioles offseason because Jordan Lyles got the start on Tuesday night, and he really ended up being the Orioles' biggest offseason addition in terms of money spent. But was he the best offseason addition, and who has been the worst addition so far? We'll take the 7 guys the Orioles added this offseason and power rank them 1 through 7 on just how good and how important they have been to the Orioles. And then we'll get you ready for the Wednesday game between the O's and the Blue Jays. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we've got an Orioles win to talk about today as the O's beat the Blue Jays 6-5 on Tuesday night. And what a pretty impressive win it was for the O's after losing 10-0 on Monday to come back and get a victory in Game 2 of this series. 6-5, the O's win it. Their record on the season now with the win, 27-36. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles victory. And the first thing you need to know is that Ryan Mountcastle just continues to demolish the Toronto Blue Jays. Mountcastle was the best bat on the day for the Orioles on Tuesday. He goes 3 for 5 with 2 doubles, a home run, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored, and no strikeouts for Mountcastle. He had the big 2-run homer in the third inning that put the O's on the board, gave them a 2-0 lead off of Toronto starter Yusei Kikuchi. He had 2 doubles later in the game as well, was able to bring in those 2 runs on the homer. And at the end of the day, he just squares up Toronto pitching. I mean, even in the 9th inning, he lined a ball out to center field that Bradley Zimmer made a nice play on to make the catch to end the top of the 9th. That ball was hit 109.9 miles per hour off the bat. And that was one of Mountcastle's 2 recorded outs of the night. I mean, he was just absolutely crushing the baseball once again. The home run, 106.3 off the bat, 396 feet. The Would It Dong account said it would have been a home run in all 30 major league ballparks. Ryan Mountcastle now in 27 career games against the Toronto Blue Jays has a 340 average, has 10 home runs. That is the most home runs he's hit against any team. And a 1,057 OPS. That's a 1.057 OPS in 27 games for Mountcastle. I just want to keep watching him hit against the Toronto Blue Jays. But speaking of hitting, the second thing you need to know from this one is that while Austin Hays only ended up with 1 hit on the night, it was a big one, and he hit the ball hard on Tuesday night in Toronto. Now, I get it. Hays only ended up with a 1 for 5 on the evening, but let's start with that one. It was maybe the biggest one of the night. A solo home run in the top of the 5th inning to lead off the inning that gave the Orioles a 4-3 lead at the time and ended up being the game-winning hit in this one. He hit it off Kikuchi and basically chased Kikuchi from the game with that home run. And for Hays, he just continues to swing a great bat all season. That home run in the 5th inning, 102.4 miles per hour off the bat, hit it 415 feet to dead center field for the solo shot. And he just continues to hit the ball. And yeah, the home runs haven't come in bunches, but he's got a 291 average now, an 815 OPS on the year, and he continues to be impressive. And again, he only had the 1 for 5 with a strikeout as well. But the other 3 balls he put in play were all hard hit balls on the night. I mentioned 102.4 on the home run. He grounded into a double play that, did kind of kill a rally in the 6th inning, but hit the ball 101.6 miles per hour off the bat, still hit it hard. He had a fly out in the game that was 101 miles per hour and had a line out that was 100.9 off the bat. So all 4 balls he put in play were over 100 miles per hour off the bat. Most days when that happens, you're going to be rewarded with more than just 1 hit, but at least the 1 hit was the big one with the solo homer. He just continues to be so impressive out of the 2-hole for the Orioles. Great defensively in left and right field. He's played some right field here in Toronto like he's done a lot on the road. But, you would guess the Orioles probably only get 1 all-star representative. And if you had to pick one right now, it's got to be Austin Hayes. Third thing you need to know from the Orioles' 6-5 win over the Blue Jays is that Jorge López got another 5-out save on the day for the Orioles as he continues to show that, the fact that he had been a starter for so long is really paying off in his new bullpen role. López comes in and ends up retiring all 5 batters he faces in this one. An inning and 2/3 scoreless, a strikeout. Again, no walks, no hits. Took him just 17 pitches, no hard hit balls against him. He now has a 0.88 ERA on the season. And it's been really impressive for López, not just settling in to this closer role. He picks up another save on Tuesday night. He's got 8 of them now on the season, he's now got 9 of them on the season. But I think what has been even more impressive is how he's been able to get more than 3 outs when it's needed. He got 7 outs against Seattle back on June the 2nd. He's gotten 4 outs a couple of times. He's gotten 6 outs a couple of times this year. This was actually the first time he's gotten exactly 5 outs on the season, but he's just rolling through these lineups so far this year. And again, the 0.88 ERA is just ridiculous. And it was fun to watch. He gets the strikeout to end the game as well on a nasty 2-seamer. The stuff is so good. It's just been a pleasure to watch him in the back end of the bullpen. Fourth thing you need to know from this one is that Jordan Lyles got, I'd say, somewhat back on track in his start for the Orioles. I mean, listen, he kept the O's in the game. He only went 5 1/3, allowing 4 runs on 5 hits, struck out 7, walked 2, allowed 1 home run, and threw 96 pitches. ERA now at 5.10 on the season, but Lyles only allowed 4 hard hit balls on the day. Again, 7 strikeouts, one of his best numbers of the season, was able to pitch into the 6th inning, which he hasn't been doing as much lately. And at the end of the day, it's not the best from Jordan Lyles, but certainly not his worst. And, after his last couple of starts were 4 1/3, 3 runs, 9 hits, 5 innings, 5 runs, 9 hits, 5 innings, 6 runs, 8 hits. It was nice to see him be much more effective in Toronto on Tuesday night. And again, was not his best stuff of the year by any stretch of the imagination. But, the night kind of boiled down to he made a really, really bad pitch in the 4th inning that allowed the 2-run homer to Matt Chapman that tied the game at 3, where he got ahead of Chapman 0-2 with a couple of good breaking balls and then threw a bad one that was just a spinner over the plate. Chapman crushed it into the upper deck in left field for a 2-run shot that tied the game. But other than that, he was locating his pitches well. Again, the slider was great. 7 whiffs on the slider. He had 14 whiffs on the night in 42 swings, 7 from the slider, 4 from the 4-seamer, 2 on the sinker, and 1 on the changeup. Kind of evenly distributed his pitches, 34 fastballs, 25 sliders, 19 sinkers, 10 changes, and 8 curveballs. I liked what I saw. Fastball velo was a tick up as well on Tuesday night. Definitely a positive sign for Jordan Lyles after 3 not so positive starts coming into this one. And that sweeper slider had a lot of break on it on Tuesday night and helped him get those 7 strikeouts. And then the 5th and final thing you need to know from this Orioles win is, the pitching was good enough with Lyles and López, and you toss in Felix Bautista, Dylan Tate, and Cionel Perez, kind of the top names in the bullpen got the outs. And, you have the top guys, as I talked about, like Hayes and Mountcastle. But how about just giving a shout out to 7, 8, 9 in the Oriole order, which certainly helped them win this ball game on Tuesday night. You had Jorge Mateo in the 7-hole, who went 1 for 3 with a single and a walk, did have 2 strikeouts, but he stole 2 bases in the 2 times he was on, scored a big run in this game. How about Robinson Chirinos, 2 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI? Again, he also had 2 strikeouts, but he had 2 big doubles in this game, including an RBI double in the fourth inning that put the O's up 4-1. A ball that was basically just a lazy pop-up to shallow left, had a 10. That's right, a 10. That is 0-10 expected batting average on that ball, but they were shifted so far over in the outfield that they couldn't get there. It landed in for an RBI double, hit another double late in the game as well. And then Richie Martin, who did not have a hit in this game, but drew a walk in each of his first 2 plate appearances and scored a run one of those times. Still has an 1,000 OPS so far this season since being called up on Tuesday. And 7-8-9, they were huge in the Orioles picking up this 6-5 win, an impressive road win to tie this series at 1 game apiece. But as I mentioned, Jordan Lyles was a big part of this game, pitching into the 6th. Cionel Perez wasn't his best, did get 1 out for the Orioles in this one. We didn't see Rougned Odor. He got the day off against the left-handed starter. But, it hasn't been a whole lot of influence, impact from the Orioles, additions this offseason. Robinson Chirinos did have 2 doubles in this game. But overall, there's been basically 7, I would say not big, but notable additions that the O's made this offseason that have at least played some sort of significant role for the Orioles this year. And with Jordan Lyles pitching again and with us pretty deep into this season, we're looking at 63 games played now. There's less than 100 remaining on the schedule. Wanted to take a look at the Orioles offseason edition and do a power rankings, 7 down to 1 of who has been the most impactful Orioles offseason edition. That's coming up, starting with ranking players 7 through 4, coming up next. But first, let's talk about Blue Nile. Because whether you're ready to pop the question or you're just celebrating a milestone moment, you can find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. If you're looking for fine jewelry, but you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. They're available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Whatever budget you have, they'll help you. And if you just don't know what you should be looking for, the experts will always help you out. So make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Orioles listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. So use the code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. And before we get back to the Orioles talk, just have to tell you about something else exciting happening elsewhere here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. Now, I know the NBA Finals are still going on, but the draft is pretty soon after. And the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft from Locked On Podcast starts June 16th. With over 50 insiders, nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board Draft experts, plus the Odyssey insiders. The first pick is June 16th. So search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. So the O's beat the Blue Jays 6-5 on Tuesday night, game 2 of a 4-game set. And as we talked about, Jordan Lyles was a pretty solid part of that win, as was Robinson Chirinos with his first 2-double game of the season. But the question is, we're 60-plus games into this season, not quite halfway, but getting there. And as we know, as I've talked about on this podcast, the Orioles did not do a whole lot in free agency and just in off-season additions this offseason. Really, there were 7 players that they added who have played in at least 20 games as a position player or pitched at least 10 games as a pitcher. And so, not that they've made the biggest impact. Some of them have. Some of them certainly haven't. I wanted to take this episode to do a little power ranking segment, going worst to best in terms of impact on the 2022 Orioles of their offseason addition. So I took the 7 players of that criteria, either 10 games as a pitcher or 20 games as a hitter. And we'll start with number 7. And I think you all know who this is going to be, but that is Chris Owings, who the Orioles signed to a minor league deal kind of late in spring training. They needed some help at shortstop, and Owings ended up making the Major League roster. And although Richie Martin had a fantastic spring, I was not really against Owings making the roster over Martin. Chris Owings showed he could play many more positions. He was a veteran, and we'd seen his bat at least have success where we had never really seen Richie Martin really succeed with the bat at the Major League level, despite the great numbers in spring training. And it was kind of down to Owings and Martin, and Chris Owings won the job. Well, he was downright horrendous, as we've covered on this podcast. Ended up going 6 for 56 with a 107 average at the plate. Was not as advertised defensively, whatever position he played for the Orioles. And at the end of the day, the O's held on to him for way too long, but finally designated him for assignment last week. And then over the weekend, officially placed him on unreleasable waivers, which means essentially he is released out of the system and would not be returning to Norfolk despite passing through waivers. It was just bad. He couldn't hit. He couldn't really field. Just not a good pickup. And again, it's not something egregious. I mean, the Orioles brought him in on a minor league deal. It's not like they spent all this money on Chris Owings, but at the end of the day, they still left him on the Major League roster for far too long. And that's a big reason why he's at last place at number 7. Number 6, I got to give to Anthony Bemboom. Now, defensively, I was pretty pleased with Bemboom. You know, he was a top 15 framing catcher in baseball, and he was a veteran guy, and the O's still held on to him. They ended up DFAing him, but he cleared waivers, and he's been in Norfolk recently. He's currently with the O's in Toronto on the taxi squad. But at the plate, pretty much just as bad as Chris Owings. Owings was 6 for 56. Anthony Bemboom was 6 for 52 in the 22 games he played, and that's a 115 average, slightly better than Owings' 107 average. He, like Owings, was an automatic out at the plate. At least he did hit one home run this year, which Chris Owings didn't do. But yeah, the bat was not there, but the defense was at least solid, and the pitchers could work to him. And when the Orioles didn't have Adley Rutschman, it was at least nice to have Anthony Bemboom back there because the O's other catcher, a terrible framer, so it was nice to have a good framing catcher in Anthony Bemboom back there. So we move on to number 5 on the list, and that's the other catcher at Robinson Chirinos. I basically only gave him the bump over Bemboom because he's still here and his offensive stats are a tad bit better. But Robinson Chirinos, the guy simply has not been good. And shout out to him for having a 2-for-4 game with 2 doubles on Tuesday night, helping the Orioles win. But man, oh man, offensively, defensively, hasn't been pretty. Coming into play on Tuesday, 36 games for Chirinos, hitting 135 with a 242 on base and a 231 slugging. When you have a bad on-base percentage and it's still higher than your slugging percentage, it's when you know you are not hitting the ball well. Just 2 home runs for Chirinos, 36 Ks in 36 games to just 13 walks. And here's the other thing. All year, he has been a bottom 5 pitch framer, according to StatCast and Baseball Savant. And for a good chunk of the year, he was literally 60th out of 60 qualified framing catchers, dead last in pitch framing. He's not helping the Orioles pitching staff one bit with what he does behind the plate. And, it was nice to have Bemboom, who's a good pitch framer. It's now nice to have Adley Rutschman, who is also a good pitch framer. But Chirinos is downright horrendous. And he's one of those guys who, it's not just the advanced framing stats that tell you he's a bad framer. You just watch him catch, and the old school eye test of framing tells you he doesn't steal any pitches for strikes. It's nice that he's been around with Houston and with these teams and played the playoffs and can be a veteran, 37 years old to help out Adley. But there's a chance he doesn't stick this whole season as the backup catcher. I mean, at least Bemboom provides good defense, which is maybe what you'd rather have behind Adley. And in terms of a bat, Jacob Nottingham, who came in on a minor league deal, has been crushing the ball all year at AAA Norfolk. And although his defense isn't great either, I think maybe Nottingham and Bemboom both might end up being a better backup in the second half of the year to Adley Rutschman. So we'll see how long Chirinos is going to hold on this team. And then we go to number 4 on the list, our first pitcher. That's Brian Baker. Now, Baker's definitely had a roller coaster season after the Orioles claimed him off waivers all the way back in the fall before the lockout from the Toronto Blue Jays. He had made 1 big league appearance, his big league debut September 1st of last year. Orioles claimed him. He was a AAA closer last season. And he started off the year well, but the overall stats haven't been what you want. 24 appearances. He's made 2 spot starts. He has a 6.00 ERA in 24 innings, 23 Ks to 9 walks, not bad at all, but he's been hit around a lot lately. He was actually, a pretty reliable reliever for the first month of the season for the Orioles, and they kept going to him, and the stuff was getting better. That's not been the case recently. It's been tough to watch. He's been kind of phased out more and more from high leverage spots. And if another reliever is showing good stuff at AAA, similar to what guys like Gillespie and Nick Vespi were doing, there's a chance that Baker may be sent back down to Norfolk at some point because he just hasn't been effective. He's only as high as number 4 because of how ineffective Owings, Benboom, and Chirinos have been. But yeah, not a great group here. But we'll get to the positive side of this with the top 3 on this list of Orioles offseason additions in this power ranking segment coming up in just a second. But first, our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 from Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health and more energy and an optimized immune system. But you may be asking, what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And it's lifestyle friendly, whatever diet you eat, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. No nasty taste whatsoever. And AG1 costs you less than $3 a day as well. And Athletic Greens is a climate neutral certified company as well. So they're doing good both in their product and in the world. It's a small micro habit with big benefits. There's one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. And right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by betonline.net, because betonline.net is your number 1 source for all betting, stats, and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including the NBA Finals. We've got Game 6 coming up tomorrow night. Will the Warriors take home the title, or will the Celtics force a Game 7? You can find all the odds at betonline.net. How about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals? The Avs and the Lightning. Game 1 is tonight. 2 high-powered offenses. Who's going to take home the title? Maybe you want to take the over in all those games. You can do it at betonline.net. Of course, we got Major League Baseball and all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. And BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering info, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. And before we get back to the Orioles talk, you have had Locked On Orioles as your first listen. Maybe make Locked On MLB your second listen today. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the number 1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your pods. So we're power ranking the Orioles' top 7 offseason additions. And, well, we've gotten through kind of the guys who haven't done much for the O's. Chris Owings at 7, Anthony Benboom at 6, Robinson Chirinos at 5, and Brian Baker at 4. But these final 3 guys are the guys who have really produced for the Orioles this year. And at the very least, these are guys who you can feel good about it when they come into the game in whatever spot they are entering. And they've, I think, had an overall positive influence on the O's in the clubhouse and on the field as well. But number 3, we are going to go to Rougned Odor. And this was tough because you could argue he's number 2. You can even argue Odor is number 1 because of what he's brought to the Orioles clubhouse with the home run chain, with just the general vibes he's brought to the Orioles. They've been good vibes. But at the end of the day, despite him picking up his offense in May, he hasn't really continued that in June. And the stats, well, they still don't look great. 55 games for Odor. It's a 209 average, a 273 on base, and a 407 slugging. He's got 7 home runs, but 48 Ks to just 12 walks in those 55 games. He's played an all right second base defensively. It's the only position he's played, and he's in there most days, not every day. Of course, sat against the lefty on Tuesday night. But I think he's number 3 because the stats are not what they were in May. And overall, a 209 average, a 273 on base, not what you want. But overall vibes got him in this serious conversation for number 2 and 1. I just think the bat got hot for a bit, but he was really bad in April, and he hasn't been great in June. If the bat gets hot again, maybe he moves up this list, but it was a tough spot, but I did put him down at number 3. Number 2 on the list, well, number 2 and 1 are pitchers, as you can probably figure out. But I got to go with CNL Perez as number 2. And I know Perez gave up an earned run on Tuesday night, only got 1 out. You could argue it was his worst outing of the year. But still, even with that outing from Tuesday night, 24 appearances out of the Oriole bullpen for 26-year-old lefty CNL Perez, a 1.37 ERA, 19 2/3 innings, 19 Ks. Now, the 11 walks have not been great, but he also picked up his first big league save when the Orioles beat the Royals in Kansas City on Sunday. So he's even done that for the O's as well. And there are, I'm not going to lie to you about it, there are a couple of a little bit concerning stats for CNL Perez, like one of them being coming into Tuesday's game before that outing. He had one of the biggest differences between his actual ERA and his expected ERA, according to StatCast. His actual ERA coming into play on Tuesday was 0.93. His expected ERA was 4.45. That is a 3.5 run difference between, again, actual ERA below 1, very, very good, expected ERA above 4. It makes you worry that things are going to start to snowball a little bit on CNL Perez. And maybe that's what happened on Tuesday night. Maybe it's not. He only faced a couple of batters, so it's not like it was an elongated bad outing. But CNL Perez has the largest negative difference in all of baseball between his ERA and expected ERA. 3.52. His expected ERA is higher than his actual ERA. The next highest is Michael Pineda, who has a 3.22 ERA and a 6.26 expected ERA. That's a 3.04 difference. So yeah, not exactly what you love to see, but he's at number 2 because despite the expected stats not being good, the actual stats are good. And that's what matters on the field at the end of the day. And so, yeah, maybe this might get worse as the season goes on. It probably will. But right now, it's been good enough to put him at number 2 on the list. But of course, number 1, a little bit by default, has to be Jordan Lyles, who hasn't been his best recently. As I talked about earlier in the episode, coming off 3 bad starts, pitched better on Tuesday night. But at the end of the day, listen, it's been 13 starts. It's been a 5.10 ERA. You'd like that to be better. But it's been 72 1/3 innings, which leads the team. 62 strikeouts to just 24 walks in those 72 1/3. He's averaging just about 5 2/3 innings per start. Again, you'd like that to be above 6, but that's where it is right now. That's mostly because of these last 4 starts. He was going more regularly 6 innings early in the year. Again, you'd like the ERA to drop below 5. You'd like the innings average to get above 6. But other than that, Jordan Lyles, not over the last couple of starts, but generally has been eating innings. He's been a veteran leader. He's been a nice quote. That's what the Orioles asked out of it. And, the sweeper, his new slider has looked good, gotten him more strikeouts, really helped him get the 7 strikeouts on Tuesday night. All things considered, been a veteran leader. They signed him to a 1-year, $7 million deal. They may trade him. They may let him go in the offseason. They may bring him back. They have that team option for 2023. They might just bring Lyles back in the rotation next year. The O's have multiple options with him right now, but he's giving them what they paid for, what they brought him in for. And because, this offseason class, not like they brought in any big names. So the bar is kind of low, but that's what gives Jordan Lyles the number 1 spot on the power rankings. But I want you, the listener, or you, the viewer, to let me know what you think about these power rankings. So in the YouTube comment section here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube page, make sure you are subscribed. We thank you so much to all of you who are subscribed here to the YouTube page. Get into the comments on this video and give me your power rankings, 1 through 7, of who have been the most important offseason additions so far for the Orioles this year. Again, I have Jordan Lyles, Cionel Perez, Rougned Odor, Brian Baker, Robinson Chirinos, Anthony Bemboom, and Chris Owings in that order. But let me know what your order is, 1 through 7, and we'll get a conversation going here in the comments, because I'm sure people have some thoughts about Odor being as low as 3 and Perez being up at 2. But that'll do it for today here on the pod. I'll be back tomorrow for a Thursday episode, giving you the recap of Wednesday night's Game 3 between the Orioles and the Blue Jays, 5 things you need to know from that one. And then I'm going to be in Bowie on Wednesday night for their doubleheader against the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, the AA affiliate of the Mets, taking in maybe 14 innings of Bowie Bay Sox baseball. And coming up on Thursday's episode, I'll recap what I see in Bowie, talk about some of the players that were highlighted. And if you are in Bowie, make sure to come say hi. I'll be taking in some fantastic minor league baseball on Wednesday night and bringing you everything I see on Thursday's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.